For people who do a lot of interviews, getting asked different questions is fun. It's one of the biggest mistakes I think people make when they're doing interviews. They make it about the audience instead of about them. If you can combine entertainment and education, that's a home run. That's who I learned from when I started.
So I just interviewed Evan as part of my first video for YouTube for my podcast called Your Paradise. But my question for you today, Evan, is now that I'm going into the world of YouTube, and I know you do or have at least, I've seen one course on sort of like YouTube mastery type stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's so much information available out there, and there's so many people that have their own methods on how to be successful on YouTube. Where can I even start? Where would you, if you looking back now from everything you've learned over the years being a YouTuber, having over 2 million people that are subscribers now, what would be the best resources for me to not waste time or energy in areas when I'm trying to get this channel up and running and to eventually be successful?
So the first starting point is making content. So I'd be looking at how do I get to 3 videos a week on my channel. Now you made your first video, which is awesome, and I don't know how long it'll take to edit and put together, and he's going home dreaming about the dog instead of editing videos. How do you get more content? So it's figuring out, okay, you have your interview series. If I'm you, I'd probably do interview series. I do talking to the camera series, and then I do a coaching series. Okay. Not just you talking to the camera, but I want to see the eyes light up to say, oh my gosh, like she knows what she's talking about. And there's just a different vibe when you're helping somebody out. So I would try to do those 3 series and put them up and just start. The most important thing is just start getting reps. More than the research is just get the content up. That's point number 1. From there, I would look at, my course is great. I think it's always great. And mine's around thought leadership. So that's specific, right? Like it's targeted to people who want to be a thought leader. Apart from that, general YouTube, I would probably start with Tim Schmoyer and Daryl Eves. I don't know if those names mean anything to you or not, but that's who I learned from when I started. Tim Schmoyer and Daryl Eves were the first 2 that I learned from because I knew nothing about YouTube, and I was just throwing up videos, and I said, I want to take this more seriously, and I just digested all their content. Daryl doesn't post that much, so his is a little more advanced typically, so it might take a little more patience if you don't know what you're doing to understand what he's talking about. Yeah. Tim is very easy to digest and early stage focus.
And do they talk on their points or everything, anything to do with everything from the visual aspect to the technical stuff, everything they cover?
They'll have videos on it. They may not cover it every month, but you can dive through their catalog and look through it. Most of what they're talking about still, even if it's 2 years old, most of it still applies now. Yeah. It really just depends on how much you want to, how much you value time versus money. Yeah. Right? If you want to go fast, my course is probably the fastest way, right? Yeah, my course is exactly for you.
Yes, your course is certainly.
We'll figure out a special rate or something, because that's exactly it. But like anything else, you can piece together things from different people with a lot of different free content as well that's out there. And also come to this or join me on one of my IG lives and ask a question how do I do X, Y, Z? And I always share the knowledge that I have as well. But that's the fastest way. The fastest way to learn is get someone who's already done it. Hire a coach. Hire a coach and hey, help me, teach me what I suck at, and let's go. You brought him to help film your video. If you had to figure out and learn what camera and what lighting and microphone, it would have been taken forever to just put one thing together, right?
I guess my question is going into the pain point of it then, what areas did you waste time, do you feel like? I know you learned from them, but what areas when you wanted to produce a successful YouTube channel, do you wish you'd spent less time on or more focus on?
Definitely worried about making it perfect. I used to hate not having it scripted, not knowing exactly what I was going to say. Even if I did an interview with you, if this was 5 years ago, I would have had to know what are the questions that she's going to ask me.
Really?
Yeah. I need to know every question, because my biggest fear is letting people down. So the idea that you would come, and especially like if you're coming from out west and you're coming to interview me, and then I didn't give you something good, it would like destroy me, right?
Yeah.
So I'd need to know in advance, what are the questions? And I shifted it to now, I don't want to know the questions. Like even now, oh, what are the questions? Whatever you guys have, like let's roll with it and see what happens. And that can be nerve-wracking when you're sitting in front of a camera and you don't really know the topic, but I don't want to know what we're talking about in advance. When people say, hey, I'll send you the list of questions, like, don't send them to me. I'm not going to read them. Not out of like rudeness, it'll be better, it'll be more natural if you actually get me on it.
So do you like script? I mean, I know you do your research for the top 10 videos and whatnot, but a lot of stuff now you just don't do with script.
So when I'm doing interviews, there's no script, right? Like what we just did was 45 minutes or whatever of unscripted. You had a script. You had notes of like what, at least where you wanted to go. It wasn't fully scripted.
Like points.
Talking points, yeah, which is great. But I don't know what was on your sheet. When I'm doing my own videos, I'll usually do just some quick talking points of what I want to say in the video, and it'll usually be like story. If I'm talking about procrastination and I want to tell an Alex story, right? I'll just write Alex. And I'll talk that story, right? Or if we're talking mentorship, I want to tell an Alex story, we'll put that in, right? If I'm talking relationship, I want to tell Nina's story, I'll just write in Nina. Nina in the car, right? And then I'll just talk to that story. Because it's a much more natural delivery than if it's me trying to memorize a script. And it allows you to produce content faster.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, the perfectionism thing, like I struggle with that so much.
Yeah.
So, I'm definitely more flexible with that too now.
So that's why 2 of the 3 series is with somebody else and doesn't have to be as scripted. Like if you're going to interview somebody, I would just try to find 1 or 2 threads that you want to pull on. If you're going to have Evan on your channel, awesome. What do you want to learn from Evan? And then just trust that you'll come up with follow-up questions. Because those are the best interviews.
Oh yeah.
When there's follow-up questions. Like as someone who consumes a ton of interviews, the most brutal thing ever is when a great question is asked and then there's an amazing answer and then the reporter just goes on to the next question on their list because they have 8 questions to get through. It's like, can you just follow up on that thing that she just said? Are you kidding me? Right? So trust that you're going to come up with great follow-ups from the first one. So you only need to find 1 or 2 things that you're going to pull on. This morning I had, oh my God, who did I have? I had Peter Diamandis on my channel, if you know Peter.
Oh yeah.
And I had, I'm blanking now, the millionaire relationship coach. Anyway, I feel brutal, I forgot that, right? Anyway, it doesn't matter. So I had both of them on my show today. Thursday is my public-facing days, interviews and hangouts and podcasts all day long, right? Those 2 are the ones that I'm nervous about, right? Because I have to ask the questions.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I going to ask her? She was my first one. What am I going to ask Patty? Like, I don't talk about relationships and I don't talk about love a lot on my channel. It's not the theme. So now I need to find an angle. And so it was just, she deals with millionaires. Millionaire Matchmaker was her show. I've never seen it. I didn't know about this woman before. What? Such a good show? Wait, when are you watching it, Nina?
What's up, Evan? Nina knows what's up.
When are you watching it?
I watched it a lot before.
Before us.
I don't remember, but I watched it a lot.
Wow. All right, such a good show. I'm learning about my wife too, great. I just have to tie it to, listen, a lot of entrepreneurs. She's dealing with a lot of entrepreneurs. If she's dealing with millionaires, a lot of them have to be entrepreneurs. They're trying to find love. She's a matchmaker. So I'm just going to ask, well, how do entrepreneurs find love? Like, what's the problem? Why can't entrepreneurs find love? What's the challenge? And once I get the line of questioning, it's like, oh yeah, that's it. I'm done my research. Like, I'll just pull on that thread and we'll find. We ended up going into women in business and her being a successful woman and does she have a message? Like, I wasn't planning to talk about women in entrepreneurship, but that's where the conversation kind of led, right? Peter, I knew of, but we've never connected. And he's always about big, bold, visionary ideas. And he has a new book. And I was talking about my big, bold vision ideas. Like, help me with my idea. That's the thread I wanted to pull on, right? And then just trust the rest of it takes over. Because otherwise you can spend days preparing for an interview and you end up coming up with 40 questions and you only ask 3 of them, right? So as soon as you find one question or one line, that's what you're going to focus on, and just trust that you'll have great responses to have more follow-up questions. When you're doing coaching, it's like, so how can I help?
Yeah.
Like the video length is however long you spend. You spend half an hour with them, helping them, and you've done it enough that you know how to get a result, right? So you have a woman come in, it's like, how do I create my morning routine? Okay, great. You have an answer for that, and you go through it. And there's no preparation because it's mostly just feeding off of each other, right? You make the connection, right? The hardest one will be the solo videos where you're just talking to the camera.
Do you think with those ones, like what you did, you know, in the mornings, how you filmed the, like, just woke up, do you think it's better to do that, like, do you feel like from everything you've witnessed on YouTube, it's better to have those way more raw and real kind of behind the scenes of your life stuff, or should that be more of like, you know, more of just a message type video?
It depends on how much of personality you're trying to build. People definitely love voyeurism and seeing like what's behind the scenes. So if Kim Kardashian did a morning routine or tour of her house, or people would freak out and want to watch it. That's more like celebrity kind of angle. So if that's the vibe that you're trying to create, it could work. At the beginning, that's usually pretty hard. It's more, what's the message? Like, what am I going to learn? So at the start, you talk about it's either entertainment or education. Where are you gonna fall under, right? A tour of a house and everything is entertainment. Like, it's escapism. I'm forgetting my crappy life and I get to watch Kim Kardashian do her thing, right? I mean, that's the point, right? That's escapism. If you're doing education, then you're teaching me something. So I need to learn something from you and watching a video. Now, if you can combine entertainment and education, that's a home run. If you can teach somebody something, but they're still smiling, having fun throughout. Marie Forleo did a great job. I don't know if you watch her stuff.
I just did B-School, actually. So, like,
oh, great.
I love Marie.
And she stopped, right? I mean, Marie hasn't made anything. She's done a couple interviews recently, but I love Marie. It's like,
Marie TV, like.
Marie TV was awesome. I really wish there were more women creating content. But when she was doing her solo pieces, she would always add funny moments to them where she's like a boat captain and like.
She had the rap where, like, you know, the images come in where she'd like do graphics and funny things.
So she injects some humor into it.
Yeah.
Right? Even if you look at Alex's videos, he's making a video a day for the TDS channel. He's answering questions from people, which often are pretty boring questions, right? It's like, Sveta's laughing. It's like, do I need a partner to come out to the dance class? And what kind of shoes do I need to? It's like super tactical, boring kind of questions, right? But Alex, because of his personality, finds a way to make it fun, and then always has some graphic or emoji or movie reference or some clip that he puts on top of it. And it's nice. He's not a like professional video editor, but he throws it in there and injects his humor. So you might even watch it, even if you don't care about the answer, just to see the fun that's going to happen on the channel, right? So injecting your own personality into it can definitely help too. But if I'm you, I'd focus on making sure people get a message and they're learning something from each video.
And how would that differentiate then if you say, like, do one that's an interview, one that's like more coaching oriented, and then one that's this one that we're talking about? Like, how would that, if I'm teaching them something in this and it's value adding on this end, then how does that look differently for, say, a coaching structured video?
The whole thing is still about connection. That's the umbrella everything falls under. And connection to self, connection to others, and then connection to the world, right? So everything will fall under that umbrella for you. And so when you're making a video about morning routine, that part of that has to be connection to self, right? So you tie it together through the mission. So when somebody's going to come and ask you a question, it's going to be related to one of the things you talked about, right? Like when he asks, hey, can we ask questions? Like, yeah, like any question? Like, yeah, but if you ask me how to sew a sweater, like I'm not going to be able to give you a good answer, right? Like I stay within a pretty narrow realm. Maybe direct you to a YouTube video or something, but people are going to come and ask you questions that they think that you're going to be able to help them with, right?
Yeah.
So it's still the same way of getting a message out, just different vehicles, right? For the interviews, I would even for you lean in more on how can you get help from the person that you have coming on?
So like help them, get them on camera to help me through a process.
Yep.
And that somebody can learn as well.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's one of the biggest mistakes I think people make when they're doing interviews. They make it about the audience instead of about them. But if you make it about you, you're actually doing the best service to the audience.
Yes, I see that. Okay.
So even how we did at the beginning, where you asked me, what's your one word and how did you find it?
And then you got me to do this.
We flipped it and said, okay, well,
Yeah.
what's your one word? And he's like, I don't know yet. Okay, great, let's go through it, right? And in that process, it's hopefully eye-opening for you, and the people who listen and watch you also then are on your journey, and they're going to be inspired by it as well. So as you're learning, they're learning. So I'd only bring on people who you want to learn something from in some area of life. Like if you feel like Evan Carmichael's not going to teach you anything, then don't have Evan Carmichael on your channel, right? Get somebody else. And then lead right with that question, right? It's like, you have this book called Your One Word. It's a great concept. I read it. I couldn't figure out my one word. Can you help me? Like, yeah, okay, let's go through it. And so the first question is something personal to you. Most people, this is great for anybody doing interviews, most people, they start with, tell me about yourself. Like for our audience who doesn't know you, give us a little bit of background. What happens is you get the same, I have that story down, canned, photocopy, repeat, right? So you end up getting the same story that I've told 18 other people today. At the same time, I'm kind of checking out now because I'm in autopilot mode. You've turned on autopilot mode for me, right? And also now your audience is getting, you don't have that unique a podcast now. Like the beginning of your podcast is the same as 30 other podcasts that I've been asked to, and not just me, everybody, right? When you flip it and you start by saying what you love about this person, it's a custom. Like when I said, have that person introduce you in a way that they resonate, right? Not just reading your bio. If you came on and said, hey, I love Evan because of XYZ, it's a different intro. I'm more engaged because it's actually meaningful. Like what you're going to say is actually meaningful, not just throwing out a list of awards. And then your first question is something that you care about. Already now I'm hyper activated because like, oh, this is going to be a fun, interesting, different interview. For people who do a lot of interviews, getting asked different questions is fun. Yeah. Getting asked the same questions is good, but now you're like photocopying your same stories over and over again.
Plus, you're proving the concept of whatever more than likely brought you onto that podcast or video or whatever in the first place.
Yeah. So, Tom Bilyeu, who we talked about, you know Tom? Have you seen his stuff?
Yes.
So when I went on my tour this year, I've had Tom on the show and we've connected, but it was the first time we met in person because we've always just like missed each other. We did a video for my channel, and the first question I asked him was, have you solved your seasonal allergy problem? Which seems like a ridiculous question, right? He's a super successful entrepreneur, but on one episode of his Impact Theory, he talked about how he has seasonal allergies and takes a pill every day for his ragweed or whatever. I have seasonal allergies, and I was taking a pill every day. And so I figure, if you guys know Tom Bilyeu, he's all into health and keto diet and like crazy, crazy health stuff, right? And he's interviewing people all the time. So if somebody's figured this out, it's got to be Tom. So I led with that question, right? And so like already he's like, oh, okay, like not what I was expecting from an interview, right? And that's good. Like you make it about yourself. You make it about how can I learn from this person who's in front of me right now, and through my sharing and being vulnerable and recognizing that I'm still, as you said, I'm a masterpiece and I'm a work in progress. The interview is your chance to show the work in progress, yes. Right? The coaching is, and the set pieces are your chance to show your masterpiece. If you have a podcast or interview show and want me to be a guest on it, I have two options for you. There's a link right there next to me. Go click it, and I look forward to being a guest on your show.